Hello and welcome to the Gaggle Wobble Challenge, and if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Szamuely. With me today, of course, is co-founder of the Gaggle, Peter Lavelle. So, Peter, there seems to be some positive signs on the Iran negotiations front. We had President Trump the other day saying that he thought that we were close to a deal. That's you could dismiss that as usual Trumpian optimism. That's his nature. He's ebulliently optimistic at all times. But we also had a Iranian official who gave an interview to NBC, and there was enough in that interview to suggest that we may indeed be approaching some kind of a deal. Now, again, we have to be very, very cautious in our approaches, because it's easy to get excited and then be disappointed. But here is the first the Trumpian statement, and
Even we're saying it now, Trumpian.
exactly. We have this is from CNN, and says Trump says U.S. is close is quote very close to a nuclear deal after Iran quote agreed to its terms. U.S. President Donald Trump said on Thursday that Washington is very close to reaching a nuclear deal with Iran after Tehran, quote, sort of agreed to its terms. Iran has sort of agreed to the terms. They're not going to make, I call it in a friendly way, nuclear dust. We're not going to be making any nuclear dust in Iran.
And he said that during while abroad during his Middle East tour.
Yes, that's right. Exactly. I mean, what he means by nuclear dust is that he's sort of suggesting we're not going to bomb Iran. I mean, that's what he's saying. We're not going to make nuclear dust. And speaking at a business roundtable in Doha, Trump reiterated that Iran can't have a nuclear weapon and suggested the negotiators are getting very close to maybe doing a deal. And then here's the NBC News that also ran with a story. Top Iranian official says Tehran would forego highly enriched uranium in a nuclear deal with Trump. The comments come from a member of the Supreme Leader's inner circle, appear to be the clearest public statements yet on Iran's willingness to reach an agreement with the U.S. And then here, Iran is ready to sign a nuclear deal with certain conditions with President Trump in exchange for lifting economic sanctions, a top advisor to Iran's supreme leader told NBC News on Wednesday. Ali Shamkhani, a top political, military, and nuclear advisor to Iran supreme leader Ayatollah al-Khamenei, is one of the most senior Iranian officials to speak publicly about the ongoing discussions. He said Iran would commit to never making nuclear weapons, getting rid of its stockpiles of highly enriched uranium, which can be weaponized, agree to enrich uranium only to the lower levels needed for civilian use, and allow international inspectors to supervise the process in exchange for immediate lifting of all economic sanctions on Iran.
But this isn't an article from 2015, is it?
No, it is not. No, it's from Wednesday.
From Wednesday.
Okay. From Wednesday, exactly. Asked if Iran would agree to sign an agreement today if those conditions were met, Shamkhani said yes. And then in Wednesday's interview, Shamkhani expressed concern that Israeli Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu, often known Bibi, could try to derail the process through back-channel lobbying in Washington, as is his wont. If the Americans remove the Bibi effect, they can easily sign the deal, Shamkhani said.
Yeah, well, this shows savviness, okay?
Yes, that's
because
right.
they know there's blood in the water, as it were, right, as before, and they're squeezing it for all it's worth.
Exactly. So the reason why I think one should be cautiously optimistic, not exuberantly optimistic, is that Trump really has decided he doesn't want to go down the path of bombing Iran. I mean, I know he's talked about it, but I think the Houthi thing I think he's realized that was a failure. That's the Houthis. Iran's going to be a more formidable adversary than the Houthis, and he doesn't want to, waste his time on futile bombing that isn't going to actually get anywhere. And then there's going to be pressure on him every few months to restart the bombing of Iran, and
And
that's just a disaster waiting to happen.
and it's the law of unintended consequences kicks in a dramatic way. I mean, to bomb Iran, the bombing of Iran, these are very difficult terms to define, okay?
Right.
And you have to remember Iran will react.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, it will react. And it was very interesting that he said it during his Middle Eastern tour because there's probably no love lost for Iran in the countries that he visited, but they don't all want to be turned into dust.
That's right. Exactly, exactly. And I think that if one thinks about his response to this the bombing of the Houthis, why did he call it off after 30 days? He suddenly saw it's costing us a lot, just financially, and we're not really getting anywhere. And if the estimates are true that $1 billion was wasted, well, that's just against the Houthis. And then you want to go down this path with Iran, when at the very minimum, if it starts bombing Iran, Iran will withdraw from the non-proliferation treaty. In other words, then your policy will have completely failed. I mean, then that's it. So you've
Then
now
you go up,
achieved the
then you go
exact
up
opposite of what you wanted.
right. Instead of going down the escalator
Right.
ladder, you go, there's limitless
Right.
up. Okay. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, this is not a difficult calculus to figure out, and the Iranian official is spot on. I mean, the Bibi effect. I mean,
Right.
that's really what's going on here. I
Right.
mean, remember everyone, Netanyahu went twice. This is a very young administration,
Right.
and Netanyahu elbowed himself into two meetings,
Yep.
public ones.
That's right.
Okay, so I mean, you have to be a complete idiot not to see what's going on right now.
Exactly.
Trump loves his boisterous language and all that, but I'm sure the all of the big deals he made, they're all memos of understanding. You guys, it's the deals. There's no deals
There's
yet.
no exactly. Yeah. Yeah. They're
There's
just
nothing.
promises to invest. I don't know.
They're promises, and I promise that I promise that I promise. Okay, and maybe some of them will come true. Who knows? Okay, but this is just bluster. All
Right.
right, but I mean, I'm sure it was made clear to him privately is that well, yeah, we're willing to invest, but we want a future. We need a future.
That's
Okay,
right.
we don't need a nuclear desert here.
Right.
Okay,
Right. No,
okay, so.
that's right. And I think that if one thinks about this the deal, I don't think Trump is going to have that much opposition at home. I mean, yes, you've got the Israel First lobby, but that has limited traction. But first of all, you've got the MAGA base, and that's his base. They would be all for an agreement.
Oh, they would be another win for the
Exactly,
president,
another
another
win.
win for the president.
Another win. And the Democrats would have difficulties opposing him because essentially it'll be the Obama deal. I mean, if you say, well, on what basis are you opposing this deal? When you were big fans of the Obama deal. So I think he can easily ride out opposition at home, whatever Bibi does. And everybody's really, they've had it up to here with Bibi. I mean, again, this isn't 2015 when Bibi was still riding high and he could come and address joint House of Congress. It's going to be difficult for him to do this, pull that stunt again.
Well, and it's really remarkable. In our last video, I was talking about people that I really like and respect and everything. That nothing is going to change. Trump is no different than anyone else. I'm not going to go there, not yet. No, because I have
No, I
evidence
think
contrary
exactly.
to reassess. Okay, but it's becoming abundantly clear that the base is making it very clear to Trump. No wars, not against Iran. And, this whole thing with Gaza is getting,
Yes.
you, it's, the stench is getting on us. We don't like that. Okay.
You're right.
We
You're
don't like,
absolutely right. Yeah. I mean, you pointed out in the last video correctly is that Trump bringing up starvation in Gaza, that's something. That's an American president, a supposed friend, the best friend Israel ever had, talking about starvation. Who's starving the people in Gaza? And Israel has denied. Israel denies that they're causing starvation. It's Trump actually saying that there's starvation in Gaza. So yeah, that I think is significant development. And as we said about Trump, Trump really is a domestic affairs person. He's always been domestic affairs. He's not a foreign policy type. He's never pretended that this was his bailiwick. And this administration, that's very different from the administration in his first term. There aren't any Rex Tillersons here. There are no John Boltons here. There are no Mike Pompeos here. It's essentially these are all Trumpian figures they surrounded with. You got Rubio. When we talk about Rubio just doesn't want to have any falling out with Trump. Hegseth, he knows that he's holding to his job by the skin of his teeth. So no opposition there. Tulsi Gabbard.
He probably wakes up in the morning and checks his messages. One more day.
I've still got a job. Then you got Tulsi Gabbard. She's obviously on his wavelength. So this isn't the neocons that he's staffed his first administration with. So that's why he has an opportunity really to get this thing off his desk. I mean, then he's got, boom, I've got this off my desk. I can deal with other things. Because if he doesn't, then it goes on, and then I think it'll break his presidency if he really now gets pushed into a stupid, pointless bombing campaign, because that's not going to achieve anything, and it will destroy his presidency.
And all of these things are connected. It's something that George and I bring up a lot, which I think other people should consider, is Trump wants better relations with Russia. I mean, he's been harping on China since the 1990s.
Right.
And when he started his presidential career in 2015, he said, "Wouldn't it be good to have good relations with Russia?" Some things never change with Trump, okay? And everything goes south with Iran. Relations with Russia, any kind of engagement with China, it's all gone. It's all gone.
Right. Exactly. So,
there's a lot of good reasons that he wants to find a deal. Again, I feel like I shouldn't have to stress it, but if it's a success for Trump, that's fine. For me, it's a success for peace. Right. Okay. Right. That's all I care about. Okay. Right. And if he wants to spin it that way, though, this will be the reason why I can keep my $400 million plane. Okay, whatever. Who cares? Okay.
Yes, exactly. I mean, it's just such a silly story that, yeah, maybe some people will find it uncomfortable. Yeah, it is kind of uncomfortable, but who cares? It's just a sort of mindless story about if he's going to collect a free plane from Doha. So, but here, I mean, if he can score a win, I think he should do it. I mean, I think there's an open goal here. If you miss it, that's going to be on you. That's a major fail on your part. I mean, this is now very much doable. It'll be a crime not to get this deal done.
And again, to people that we're friendly with, people that we like and respect, there's nothing inevitable. Okay? Don't say that. Yeah. Don't say it. I know people that agree with George and I on so many things, and they loathe Trump. They just loathe him. Yeah. That's fine. That's okay. Okay. But we want the same thing.
Right.
Let's not have a bombing campaign that will destroy Iran. Iran will retaliate. Its entire neighborhood will be incinerated. Right. Those that all Israeli firsters, Israel isn't going to come out good on this. No. Okay. No. I mean, swallow the medicine. It's bitter. Okay, but we'll all be better for it.
Exactly. And I think that's the problem, that there's that kind of irrational hatred for Trump that blinds people for good things. Hey, you don't like him, but if he can get a deal done, then why are you complaining about it? I mean, there's a deal to be had here. he, of all people, is the one who can get it done because of his background and everything else. And, because he's supposedly so pro-Israeli and anti-Iran, and he walked out on the JCPOA. That makes him all the more qualified to get this deal done.
You know what makes him qualified for getting this done? He won a victory in November. Okay? He won every battleground state. Okay?
Yep.
He has a mandate, and he's doing things I very much dislike. Don't get me wrong, but on these issues, give him a wide berth.
I think so. And
what do we have to lose?
I think so, and I thought it was quite interesting that Responsible Statecraft, the editor there, there's Trita Parsi, who's certainly no friend of Trump's, seems to be saying, I think Trump is pursuing a very wise course on Iran, and that he has not committed himself in any way to some of his underlings who have talked about, oh, absolutely no nuclear enrichment, and like Trump has never said that. That was even Steve Witkoff, sounded off like that. Oh, we can't possibly have any nuclear agreement. Trump hasn't said that. So he's been very shrewd in keeping his options open, because that's that would break up any possible deal. So he knows that, okay, we can have some enrichment, we can have the IAEA oversight. It can be done, and we saw from this that guy, this advisor to Khamenei. He's saying, look, all these things can be done. We can have enrichment to a low level and under the supervision of the International Atomic Energy Authority, lift sanctions. All of that is within reach. I this was a big win, and it was something that's off the table for at least for the duration of the Trump.
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting because you have so many what they call neocons. We need to break that term down and maybe come up with something new. I'm tired of that term.
Yeah, me too.
But people have built their careers on this. Tom Cotton, Lindsey Graham.
Yeah.
It's part of their political identity. Iran is the biggest exporter of terrorism.
Yeah.
Oh, blah, 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 blah. We hear it all the time. Trump is smashing that with his rhetoric.
Yes.
With his rhetoric, everyone. We don't have actions there. We have rhetoric. Okay.
That's right. Yeah. That's the thing.
And Trump is in he's down in the polls and all. Okay, fine. We'll talk about that later. Again, who you poll tells you the result. Okay, but he knows one thing for sure, and George and I brought it up last time. Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And if he can keep those people happy, he has a fighting chance.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. They have made their position absolutely clear. They don't want any kind of a war. They made their position clear on the Houthis. I mean, that was, remember, when we looked at that signal chat, and J.D. Vance, who kind of speaks for that constituency, he was not at all happy with this. There's that whole Houthis thing. Mike Waltz wanted to do it, but Waltz has now been sidelined. So, there is no appetite within the Trumpian coalition for launching a war that really ultimately the United States cannot win, because you'd have to then escalate to the point of an American invasion, and that's just simply a non-starter. So it'd be totally pointless
for a tiny
exactly
colonial settler state. Right. Really?
Yeah.
That
exactly.
There's something. We edited our last video, and we're going to end this one the same way. Something going on.
Right.
Okay. So lean into it. Okay.
That's right.
The worst thing can be we were wrong. That's okay. I can say that. I could be wrong. Right. George has convinced me of things. He's changed my mind on things.
Right. No, absolutely, we could be wrong. It's always useful to be pessimistic. I mean, always that's often things don't work out. Most of the time, things don't work out. But at the same time, one should be open for the possibility that things could change.
Well, I want to end on this because I think it'll be a topic for us next week. Trump is talking about starvation in Gaza. I did. It's remarkable.
Yep.
Remarkable.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And we'll see if it goes anywhere. Because I believed, and I remember after the election, some very prominent people I had on my program, and I said he was aware of Genocide Joe. He's not going to like Genocide Don. Oh no, no, he doesn't care. I think he does care.
I think
I
he
think he
does.
does care. All right.
Yep.
He's got a very thin skin.
Yep.
Okay. And
Yep.
he wants to be adored. I
Yep.
mean, the way he talked about himself on his trip, I mean,
Right.
only that man can talk that way. No one else in our, George and I followed politics for a very long time, and nobody ever talks about themselves that
No,
way.
no,
I mean, Liz Cheney likened herself to Abraham Lincoln, and I mean, that just like, that blows circuits across the political spectrum. Okay, Donald Trump has no problem with it, and everyone,
exactly.
well, that's Donald Trump. Okay.
He is unique like that, in that everyone just accepts it. It's like, comparing himself. I think I'm better than George Washington. I mean, it's just funny. So people just find it just funny.
But no other politician could
No one
ever
else
say
can do it. That's why when he had that meme as the Pope, and there were some Catholics were outraged, but it was funny. It was just very funny that he just sends out this meme sitting there with a robe of the Pope. I mean, Trump of all people, being the Pope.
well, I mean, also, I'm sure he's in, St. Peter's, and he's like, yeah, had a good architect here. You guys do some good upkeep here. I like it. I like it. Who does the floors? What's the polish? I need that. Okay. I mean, that's part of how he sees everything. Okay. Everything is physicality also for him.
Right, right.
Okay. George Bush Sr., he was considered the intellectual in the family, and compared to his son, he was. Okay. But I mean, he did talk about ideas and things like that. He was very bland, very boring. He was the quintessential product of the establishment, the last great wasp.
There was
Okay.
he looked like the wasp. So it's like you have that waspy look, just like people who, if people remember Mayor John Lindsay of New York, classic waspy look. The Rockefellers have that classic waspy look. George Bush Sr. also had exactly that look. His son didn't have that look, but that very waspy look. But the other thing is that Trump is his constant availability to the media. I mean, this isn't, imagine that, he's just constantly talking to them. He has them in the Oval Office. He's always taking questions. When he doesn't like a question, he says, well, who do you work for? Or CNN. Well, that's a failing network. Nobody listens to CNN anymore. I mean, this is a constant banter. It's never
Remember, it was
happened where the
Air Force
president's
One. Where are
always
you from?
available.
You're with BBC. BBC. Okay.
The BBC. But
Yeah, another real beauty.
that's the word. That's what he used about the BBC. He's like, oh, that's a beauty. The beauty of the BBC.
But what's interesting is I think he believes that, but his base believes it too. They like when he says that.
Right.
Oh, you're CNN.
That's right.
See, that's how his base feels.
That's right.
Okay. I mean, not since, again, I don't want to go back to our favorite topic here, but I mean, people talk about, the Reagan Revolution and all that. I mean, that was a great deal of it had to do with the melees of the 1970s,
Right.
the Vietnam War. Jimmy Carter was a very weak president. And there was a natural, remember Democrats for Reagan? Remember that?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the only figure close to Trump is Richard Nixon,
Right. Right.
because people would crawl over broken glass for Nixon. Okay, they will do it for Trump as well, but he's got to be careful. He's got to be very careful.
That's right. Yeah. The Nixon news conferences, which are quite interesting. Sometimes you can pick them up on YouTube. They were very tense. I mean, he hated the media. They hated him back. They were very tense. I mean, they would ask him aggressive questions, and you could see he was having difficulties controlling his responses. He gave good responses, but they were really tense. Trump just enjoys this. I mean, he just throws these insults out. It's like, oh, that's another beauty.
Well, many people say it was the greatest thing that's ever happened. Many people are telling.
Yeah.
Okay,
Are you going to
and
plan?
I know I'm your favorite president.
That's
Okay,
right. You're going to plan. You're going to
how,
run.
how do you deal with that? You,
You know,
you don't know how.
they don't know
That
how. Yeah,
because it's a completely disarming discourse.
that's right.
Because do you laugh? Do you take him seriously? And then you start doubting yourself. Am I helping him
Right.
with these questions? See, it's a weird psychological game because the more you dump on him, the more he comes back with a reasonably good zinger, or he'll say, that's just CNN. Next question, okay?
That's right.
No other person has been able to do that.
No, no,
No other person has been able to disarm the media
no, no.
because if you're George Bush Sr., you take them very, very seriously. And Obama wanted, all he wanted was the acolytes.
Adoration. You love the
Okay.
adoration. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And only the media can do that for you.
That's right.
Okay.
That's
And,
right.
and and Trump is saying, no, I have Truth Social. I got Marjorie Taylor Greene. I got my base. I don't need you
Yeah,
people.
that's right. That's right. No,
And speaking to the press so often, he controls the news story. He controls the news cycle. Oh, every single day, he controls
right.
the news cycle.
Exactly. And I think that's what you just said is very important, that he has completely opened up that White House press pool. It used to be, oh, New York Times, Washington Post, CNN, BBC, but he's opened it up to alternative media. Inside that press pool is Breitbart, Real America
This
Voice.
Nick Poole guy.
Yeah, yeah, that's right, Tim Pool.
Oh, Tim.
Then yeah, Bannon's the Bannon show. So he's kind of opened it up. Of course, the White House, White House Correspondents Association is outraged, but they don't have a base to stand on. Why shouldn't they? Trump said, "Hey, you're not the media." A lot of the media encompasses all sorts of institutions now. We don't have just
Well, I don't
networks
know,
like New
George.
York Times in the
You
old
may know
system.
better than I do, but I think probably an episode of the Steve Bannon show gets more ratings than any
Yeah.
program on CNN.
Yeah, exactly. Easily, easily. I mean, CNN has this reputation, but when you look at the numbers, you think, God, is that all? And given that it's on all the time in every gym in the country, in every airport lounge in the country, think that's all. I mean, literally nobody's watching. I mean, it's like because nobody watches it in any of these airports or in gyms or anything. So it has this reputation, but clearly nobody's watching it. So that's what people do. Tim Pool, whatever. People do tune in to Tim Pool or Steve Bannon or those Real America Voice and the rest. So Trump has picked up on this, that the entire media landscape has just completely been transformed in the last 10 years.
And it's not going to go back.
No, no, no.
It's not. And these networks are way too expensive to run. Way too expensive. Okay.
Exactly.
CNN will be on the block. MSNBC it's been on the block for years now. Okay. Nobody wants to touch it. Why? Doesn't have value.
No,
There's no value there.
That's right. That's right. It's quite remarkable how, just, in the era, let's say in the 1960s and 70s, all the networks, they used to have correspondents. You'd have a correspondent in London, you'd have one in Bonn, you'd have one in Rome and Paris. So they don't have anything like that anymore. You just have one European correspondent, or you borrow the BBC's guy, because they just don't have the money any longer to run these offices in all these different countries.
And even worse is I can remember in August 2008 when Saakashvili's forces invaded South Ossetia, they just parachuted. Oh, well, is somebody in London available?
Yes.
They parachute them in. They have no idea where they are. They don't have any idea what's going on. And then their handlers, in this case, Saakashvili's people, just fed them talking points. I mean, it was so obvious that these people have no idea where they are. Okay. And people pick up on it.
Yeah, of course they do. Exactly. That's right. So it's clear that as they're talking, and you see, even when they talk about Ukraine, they have no idea anything other than the sort of the various talking points that they've been told that, well, Putin and the Russians are the bad guys. Zelensky and the Ukrainians are the good guys. That's all. That's all you have to know. And then just keep talking. And so there's none of the kind of the expertise that at least once you had an expertise. Well, here's our London correspondent. At least he knows something about that's going on in London. Now, I mean, this London correspondent is this a ubiquitous figure. He has to deal with pretty much everything on the European continent.
Why is it that CNN, Al Jazeera, and BBC have people in Kiev and they say exactly the same thing? I mean, isn't a war going on there? I mean, meanwhile, the Russians said this. You never get that. Okay, you never get. I mean, you could just check the wires. You could check TASS. I mean, you could do in a perfunctory way.
Right.
No, but according to the presidential administration of Vladimir Zelensky said. Well,
yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
I thought you were supposed to challenge power, not reinforce it.
That's right. Yeah.
Anyway, we started out talking on this video about Iran. Guys, keep an open mind, okay? Because I was very, very pessimistic a few weeks ago. It looked like it was,
right.
It looked like everybody had got the same talking points in the Trump administration, and looked like, Bibi had pulled it off, and now things are unraveling. Okay, yeah. We can make a deal. There's starvation in Gaza.
Right.
Trump's speech about the nation builders and the interventionists. Yeah. Take a look at that speech. I never thought those would pass the lips of an American president in a lifetime.
No. And the New York Times is running with the story with these countries all saying, "Hey, Trump is talking our language." These are the
Arab leaders, but don't you think, George,
is talking our language?
Yeah, but I mean, what in looking at that, and George and I like to read transcripts more than anything else, because you can stop and you can think and reread it, okay, parse it out. But when he gave the anti-interventionist, anti-nation building speech, I just can well imagine in that huge audience. Yeah, we know, Mr. President, we already know. We're just happy you're acknowledging it finally, because we've been on the short end of that stick for a very, very long time. Okay. So, I mean, it was more of an acknowledgement. I mean, and good. I'm glad it was said. Okay. It has to be followed up, obviously. Right. Okay. But there's something going on here. Right. And we don't have enough data points yet, but it's piqued my interest. Let's put it that way.
I agree. That's we may be on the brink of a major transformation. Too early to say because history is what it is. But there are major changes going on. That this is a different way of speaking, a different approach to the world than any past American president have had. They all subscribe to the consensus establishment view. Trump seems to be breaking from that and talking a language that other countries are now responding to. Now we can think about the United States in a different way.
And very, very often from the liberal media, which is like 99% of media, waiting out Trump.
Yeah.
This is an aberration.
Yep.
All of this, PMC nonsense.
Right.
I think that, if it gets traction,
yep.
I think the next administration, even if it's a Democrat, they can't disregard.
They can't undo it. They can't
undo it. Yeah. No, because this is reflecting. See, this is one of the problems with Western democracy. Okay, is the body politic may have a lot of different ideas, but as it percolates up, it suddenly kind of dissipates. Trump is making that conduit open up. Let it flow up. Okay, which is not a bad thing.
No,
okay. So those who are saying, "Oh, we just have to get through the next 3 years and 4 months," I wouldn't count on that.
I don't know. That's the European strategy. I mean, we talked earlier about these various European leaders that's how they're calculating. We have to wait it out. Maybe he'll do poorly in the midterms, and then we don't have to worry about it anymore. But you can't bank on that. You just don't know that could work, because even, as you said, even if a Democrat succeeds Trump, he can't entirely go back on that. They're not gonna go back to an Obama or a Biden. I think that whoever comes in, if it's a Democrat, is going to have to incorporate some Trumpism within his administration.
We will see. All right, everybody. This is our wrap for Friday. We're going to reconvene on Sunday, live stream at 10 o'clock Eastern time, God willing, and then George goes solo on Tuesday as usual.
That's right. And, I can see these dogs that sort of, getting angrier and angrier and say, yeah, but, fine words, butter, no parsnips. What about the tip jar? What's going on there? And I don't know. I mean, I'm doing my best here. And they say, yeah, it's coming along. Yeah, tip jar. What's happening there? And so
he's listening.
yeah, he's listening. Yeah. And, there's not a lot happening. All this talk about Trump and whatever. I want to address the tip jar crisis. So if you have any money at all, anything lying around, big wad of dollar bills into that tip jar. We're very grateful for all of your help, friendship, and support. The more you're able to donate, the more of these videos we can make, the more we can improve on the technology. And I'm going to have that terrifying stare at me, discombobulating me. So remember, if you like the gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Bye-bye.